Exposed, 13 spine-chilling true stories of haunted places where the dead are cursed to rest. Maria's pulse raced like the engines of a jet soaring through a storm. It was an ordinary day in their quiet suburb, but an extraordinary dread lurked just beneath the surface. She hadn't meant to stumble upon the article while rummaging through her grandmother's dusty attic, but the headline clawed at her senses. Exposed, 13 spine-chilling true stories of haunted places where the dead are cursed to rest. The newspaper clipping spoke of St. Joseph's Hospital, a dilapidated shell of a building, painted with shadows and whispers of the restless dead. Once a beacon of hope and care, now it was just a grim reminder of lives lost and stories stolen. As she cleaned out the attic, the air felt thick, almost electric, with an unwelcome tension. Memories of her grandmother flooded back, and each creak of the old floor sent icy fingers down her spine. The shadows, Amy and Lucas had mentioned, their innocent voices laced with fear. At first, Maria brushed it off as childhood nightmares, until she started seeing them too. Flickering lights danced outside windows, and sometimes, when the sun dipped low, dark figures appeared at the edge of her vision, dissolving into nothing upon focus. Panic twisted in her gut. "Knock, knock," the kids whispered, pretending to play a mundane game. But right then, a sudden, dreaded knock echoed through the house. It was like the sound of desperation, a chilling invitation that left her breathless. The front door hovered between reality and a nightmare, echoing like a heartbeat in the silence. Before she could brace herself, she ran into Mrs. Thompson at the local grocery store. The retired nurse's eyes were wide, sunken, shadows pooling beneath. "You shouldn't let them linger near that hospital," she warned, her voice a frightened whisper cloaked in urgency. "Vengeful spirits. Cursed souls. They roam without peace, tied to the pain of neglect." Each word crashed like thunder in Maria's heart. "Your family, it's connected. Don't let them in." Fear churned within her as she returned home, the grocery bags feeling heavier than ever. The children's laughter turned haunting when they recounted their dreams of a lady trapped in the wall, frozen in a moment of agony. Goosebumps danced on her skin, settling like a rotten cloak around her shoulders. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That night, the air felt thick and heavy, each heartbeat echoing louder than the last. A knock rattled her soul, a soft, ghostly sound fragile against the soundscape of the old house. Maria hesitated, fingers trembling on the doorknob. Peeping through the peephole, Mrs. Thompson's face stared back, but something about her smile twisted the pit of Maria's stomach. It was like the door was the only thing standing between her and the unthinkable darkness that lurked beyond. And just like that, Amy's giggles died, replaced by a suffocating silence, as shadows crept closer. Maria's heart raced. Was this the moment the nightmares collided with reality? The night stretched on, thick with tension, leaving her questioning whether the true danger was behind the door or within the walls of her own home. The knock came again. Soft yet insistent, like a whisper on the wind. Maria's heart thudded painfully against her ribcage. She swallowed hard, her throat dry. The children stood frozen beside her, wide-eyed, clutching one another, sensing the shift in the room. "Mommy, who is it?" Amy's voice trembled as she tugged at Maria's shirt. "I don't know, sweetheart," Maria whispered, her own voice barely audible. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "Stay back, okay? Just stay behind me." The shadows seemed to deepen around them, clinging to the walls. She could see them vibrating in the flickering light of the hallway lamp, twisting into grotesque shapes as unease settled heavily in the air. She forced herself to look through the peephole again, but what confronted her made the blood run cold. Mrs. Thompson's face morphed into an unsettling mask of sorrow and desperation. Her eyes, wide and hollow, bore into Maria like daggers. The smile, icy and unnatural, made Maria's heart race faster. "Let me in, Maria." Mrs. Thompson's voice broke the silence, raw and ragged. "They can't get to you if you let me in." The haunting pitch of her plea sent spikes of terror down Maria's spine. She shook her head, backing away from the door, instinctively shielding her children. "No, I can't. I'm sorry." She gasped. The door rattled violently, a harsh thud that echoed through the house. Maria felt the walls close in, the shadows pulsating, almost alive. "Mommy!" Lucas cried, tears brimming in his eyes. "Make it stop. How did she know my name?" Maria thought frantically, panic consuming her. "How does she know?" The sound of scratching followed, fingernails clawing against wood. They were calling. Whispering names from forgotten depths. "Maria, please just leave," she shouted, her voice trembling. The knocking steadied, but the scratching only grew harsher. The living room shadows thickened, stretching toward her like black tendrils, grasping, beckoning. Then, another sound broke through, an eerie crooning drifting from the back of the house. A lullaby, sweet and distorted. It curled through the air, wrapping around her senses. It pulled her toward the kitchen, the spectral notes punctuated by the rhythmic thumping against the door. Maria's breath hitched, something inside drawing her outside, towards the impossible echo of memories. "Mommy, don't go!" Amy cried, clutching her leg, but the haunting tune practically seized Maria's will, urging her to step forward. She turned slowly, moving against her better judgment. Each step felt heavy, the air sinking deep into her lungs. She knew she was crossing a line. The children were left behind, helpless and fearful as Maria approached the kitchen. There, among the shadows, she felt a presence swirl and coalesce. The walls throbbed with energy, the air thick with something sinister. The windows fogged, freezing her in place. A figure appeared, a woman, her face hazy yet intensely familiar. Maria squinted through the darkness, heart thumping louder. It was the lady from her children's nightmares. "Help me!" The woman's lips twisted into a plea, desperation etching deeper lines into her ghostly features. Maria's mind reeled. Who was she? What did she want? The shadows danced expectantly, fluttering like moths around a flame, urging her closer. The whispering grew into a cacophony, drowning out her thoughts. "You must come." A chill swept through the room, a gust that shook Maria to her core. She stumbled back as the woman's eyes bored into her, vibrant with a mix of sorrow and anger. Just as Maria turned to run, she heard the front door splinter. The last remnants of her protection crumbled. It was time to decide. Fear curled in her gut. Should she confront the spirit that haunted her kids, or flee deep into the surreal darkness of her home, where a new terror had begun to unfold? But she didn't know what was waiting behind that door was only the beginning. Maria's heart raced as she fought against the urge to run. The ominous melody still draped around her, sticky and suffocating. She could hear the relentless splintering of the door, the muffled shouts from Mrs. Thompson morphing into something darker. The air in the kitchen felt electric, vibrating with malice. Her gaze snapped back to the woman. She was the embodiment of fear, her eyes like two voids of despair, reaching out for Maria as if tethered by an invisible thread. "Help me," the figure whispered again, more insistent this time, yet it sounded less like a plea and more like a command. Around her, shadows shifted, shapes elongated, and fingers of darkness crawled along the walls. The chilling sensation crept beneath Maria's skin as if they were awakening, hungry for the warmth of her flesh. Panic turned to desperation. She needed to reach her children. "Mommy!" Amy's voice pierced through the chaos. "Please!" Maria turned, but the hallway felt different now. It stretched indefinitely, winding deeper into darkness. The glow from the kitchen faded, snuffed out by the encroaching shadows. She took a step back, her instinct to protect her kids igniting a courage she didn't know she had, but turning her back on the figure felt like sealing her fate. The woman's presence flickered, twisting as if caught between two worlds. "Don't abandon me," she said, voice thick with sorrow, almost unbearable. "Mommy!" Lucas cried again, unmistakable fear punctuating his voice. With a deep breath, Maria charged back down the hallway toward her children. The whispers surged, louder now, drowning her thoughts, haunting her resolve. She had barely crossed the threshold of the living room when the door burst open. A gust of cold air blasted through, slamming against her chest like a physical blow. Mrs. Thompson stood there, disheveled and wild, her eyes framed by shadows. "You must come to me, Maria. They can't reach you." She screamed, but her words twisted into something more sinister, like a plea from the depths of the abyss. "Stay back!" Maria shouted, instinctively stepping between the threat and her children. The silent tension thickened, punctuated only by the haggard breaths of the woman in the doorway, who seemed to dissolve and reshape with every heartbeat. Suddenly, the lullaby echoed again, but this time, it was laced with an undercurrent of rage, the melody warping like a dark omen. "Come to me. The truth is here." It sang through the air, pulling at Maria's thoughts, threatening to expose deep-seated fears she had tucked away. Panic gripped her chest. She felt the shadows pulse with an unsettling eagerness, like a predator poised to pounce. The woman at the door began to step forward, but in that moment, Maria's fear surged into a desperate clarity. "No! I will not let this happen." With a primal scream, Maria lunged forward, pushing toward Mrs. Thompson, but in the corner of her eye, she saw the figure behind her strengthen, drifting forward as if drawn by Maria's defiance. The two forces collided, Mrs. Thompson's icy desperation and the looming dark spirit. A wave of energy broke around them, shaking the very foundation of the house. "Mommy!" Amy and Lucas screamed, eyes wide as they stood paralyzed, seeing the turmoil unfold. Maria felt their fear thrumming through her. She had to protect them at all costs. She knew she could not back down, but something deep within told her that either choice could unleash horrors she couldn't fathom. A voice slithered through her thoughts, cold and inviting, promising answers but weighted with threat. "The truth lies within." "What truth?" Maria yelled, the world tilting around her. But as the darkness crept closer, consuming the edges of her reality, the answer hung in the silence, waiting to unveil itself with a final, chilling revelation. What would she discover if she dared to confront whatever lay ahead? Maria's scream echoed through the now crumbling structure, reverberating like thunder against the walls. The energy pulsing around her intensified, swirling shadows wrapping tighter, closing in like a vice. Fear clawed at her throat, turning her voice into a whisper. "Stay back, please," she begged, summoning every ounce of courage to shield her children. Her heart thudded, drowning out the haunting lullaby that danced through the air like smoke. Each note was a caress of ice, chilling her to the bone. The figures clashed, Mrs. Thompson's desperate visage contorted with pain, while the wraith behind her elongated, twisting in the darkness, hungry, searching. "Mommy!" Amy cried out, dread threading through her voice. Maria spun around, her gaze darting to them. But as she turned, the shadows lunged. She felt their icy breath wash over her, a cold rush snatching the air from her lungs. The figure behind Mrs. Thompson morphed, a monstrous apparition split between realms, eyes flaring like first-hand hell. The moment hung thick with terror. Maria's pulse thundered in her ears. "No!" she shouted again, a protective instinct kicking in. She charged, but Mrs. Thompson raised a trembling hand, an echo of frantic fear. "You don't understand," the woman shrieked, her voice splintering. "They'll take everything from you." The shadows quivered in response, resonating with her words, a sickening harmony. Suddenly, the walls trembled under the weight of the rising dread. Cracks began to snake across the plaster, and Maria realized with horror that the house was alive, breathing in her fears and exhaling darkness. "What do you want?" Maria screamed, desperation flooding her. The shadows seemed to pulse as if considering her question, a gnawing silence amplifying the tension stretching thick between them. Mrs. Thompson's features twisted, agonized, the darkness behind her whispered fiercely, clawing for Maria's attention. Listen to her, she knows. Maria shook her head, thoughts racing. If she listened, would she drown in the darkness too? But the faces of her children, wide-eyed and pleading, anchored her wavering resolve. She had signed up for motherhood, not a death sentence. The shadows surged forward in a cacophony of whispers, each one clawing at her sanity. The truth lies within you. It was a taunt, echoing like a broken record in her skull. Taking a step backward, she caught her breath and turned to Mrs. Thompson. What is the truth you speak of? Why do you keep coming? What do you want with us? You are a part of this, the woman gasped. Your children, they're connected. Maria staggered, as if the world beneath her feet distorted. The essence of the house grew darker, pulling at her, squeezing until she gasped for air. No. I will not give in. But the shadows poured forth, curling up her ankles like serpents, the lullaby creeping back into her ears, thrumming with seduction. Each note wrapped around her mind, promising peace if she surrendered. But surrender meant losing herself and her children to this nightmare. Mommy, help. Lucas whimpered again, the fear in his voice sharper than knives. Desperation struck like lightning. Maria's voice came out ragged, burning deeply. I am not afraid. I choose them. In a moment of clarity amid the encroaching darkness, she charged forward, fueled by a fierce maternal instinct, looking straight at Mrs. Thompson. I'm not your pawn. I refuse to play this game. Suddenly, a blinding flash erupted, illuminating the room, revealing fleeting glimpses of twisted faces, languished souls trapped in the shadows. The house trembled violently as if in response to her defiance, and the shadows recoiled, shocked, wavering momentarily, but could it hold? Could her resolve withstand the power that awaited? The air crackled with tension as the clash reached its peak, Maria's heart pounding against her chest like a drum of war. And then, silence fell, cloaked in icy foreboding. What comes next? The question loomed, heavy in the air, taut with anticipation. What would be revealed in this battle of wills, where darkness sought to claim her? The answer lurked in the shadows, waiting. The silence was deafening, a thick blanket that layered over the chaos, muffling even the tiniest whimper from her children. Maria stood there, frozen, waiting for something to shatter the stillness. The air felt electric, charged with a tension that bubbled just beneath the surface, ready to erupt. Mrs. Thompson's mouth formed a silent scream, terror etched across her features, though whether it was for herself or for Maria, she couldn't tell. A flicker of a shadow darted behind the woman, teasing at the edges of visibility, and Maria felt every nerve in her body tighten. It was coming. Whatever it was coming for them. Mommy? Amy's voice was barely a whisper, filled with the innocence that only amplified the horror. What's happening? The question hung like a noose in the air. Maria turned, grasping both children tightly, anchoring them to her. Stay close to me, she urged, though her voice trembled. The shadows began to pulse again, this time a deep, guttural thrum that resonated in her chest. They coiled and twisted, a living tapestry of nightmares, and the sound of their whispers grew louder, cutting through the silence like knives. Embrace us, allow us. Maria shook her head fiercely, teeth clenched. No. I will fight. In response, the shadows screamed an unholy choir of sorrow and anguish. It was a melancholic sound, echoing with the memories of lives lost, hopes extinguished. The walls shuddered beneath its weight, dust raining from the ceilings, twisting the world into chaos. Without knowing why, Maria turned to face the dark entity that hung behind Mrs. Thompson. It was formless, an amalgamation of shadows and remorse, with eyes that bore the depth of countless souls all trapped, all begging for release. It focused its gaze on Maria, the temperature plunging as if to test her resolve. "You cannot save them," it hissed, the voice echoing like the caress of winter's breath, chilling her to her core. "What you protect, you cannot claim." Maria felt a cold wave of despair wash over her. The truth that lay within the shadows whispered sweetly, promising liberation if she succumbed. But at the core of her being, she knew this was a lie. "Mommy!" Lucas pressed, panic rising in his voice, his small fists gripping her shirt. In that moment, Maria stepped forward, determination surging through her. "I don't believe you. I would rather fight than live in your darkness." The world trembled again, and with her declaration, a shockwave rippled through the house. It crackled, the walls moaning, and for a brief moment, the shadows seemed to waver, swirling as if caught in a tempest. Faces emerged, twisted and anguished, and Maria felt her breath hitch. Were they the souls of the lost? Had they once stood where she did now? "Join us," they pleaded, their voices merging into a haunting lament. Maria's heart raced, fueled by an instinct to protect her children. "I refuse. You will not take them." As she shouted, the air shimmered around them. A beam of light burst into existence, illuminating the shadows, and Maria felt something shift deep within her. The darkness recoiled again, screeching like nails on a chalkboard. It was a moment of hope. But would it last? Maria felt the shadows encroach once more, less determined, but seeking. They whispered promises, seductive and taunting. They knew her fears, her weaknesses like an open book, and for every inch she gained, they clawed back ferociously. Then she noticed the slightest flicker. Mrs. Thompson, trembling, a glint of memory sparking in her eyes. "Help us break free," she breathed, seeming to be battling her own demons while reaching for her children with a desperate longing. Maria's heart twisted. What was the truth behind those words? How were they intertwined with her fate? As the house shifted under the looming weight of dread, shadows coiling tighter, Maria realized time was running out. Her next move could either seal their doom or provide a glimmer of hope. "Mommy, please!" Lucy squeaked, eyes wide with terror. In that final moment, a revelation crested within her, a distant memory of her own childhood, a story that had been passed down. Had it all been a warning? The truth became a gripping force, sucking in her breath. What if each choice was a portal to something darker? Before she could voice the thought, the howls surged, drowning out her own scream. What would she have to sacrifice to protect her children? As the shadows lunged forward, a new and chilling question broke through the chaos: who would be the next to fall? The shadows writhed, creeping like smoke, and Maria felt an icy tendril curl around her ankle. Panic surged, hot and raw, as she yanked her foot free, the touch of darkness lingering like a brand against her skin. The sound of her heart thudded loudly in her ears, drowning the whispers of the lost mingling in the air. "Mommy!" Lucas's voice cracked, filled with an urgency she couldn't ignore. She looked down, his small face awash in fear. Amy clung to his side, her wide eyes reflecting the chaos enveloping them. "What do we do?" Time seemed to stretch, thick with despair, then snap back like a taut wire. The walls felt like they were closing in, the air heavy with dread. She could feel it, the urge to give in, to let the shadows wrap around them like a suffocating embrace. "No!" she shouted, louder than before, her voice piercing through the vortex of anguish. "We're not a part of this." With a desperate resolve, she found herself shouting into the void, "You may want to take us, but not today." The shadows flickered again, a momentary retreat, as if her words struck a chord. But they were still there, clawing at the edges of her sanity, hungry for submission. She could feel their whispers slithering between her thoughts, echoing her doubts. "Leave! We refuse to join you!" Maria screamed. The air crackled once more, and the shadows pulsed, but with a lethargic anger, as though stunned by her fearlessness. Then Mrs. Thompson lurched forward, her face twisted and ashen, grappling with her internal battle. "You don't understand," she rasped, her words laden with panic. You have to give in. It's easier safer no. Maria retorted, her voice steady against the tide of darkness creeping closer. She stepped between her children and Mrs. Thompson, trying to shield them from the chaotic swirl of despair. We choose to fight. We won't let you turn us. A chilling silence followed her declaration, heavy as lead. Then a rumble echoed through the house, almost as if it was considering her claim. The shadows recoiled, sensing the conviction radiating from her. They snarled, seething with frustration, the air thick with their discontent. Mommy, what's happening? Lucy whimpered, her voice trembling. Maria's mind raced. The flickering light that had momentarily pushed back the shadows felt weak now, teetering on the edge of extinguishment. She needed a plan, a way to break this cycle of despair. What had her parents taught her? The stories, the tales about darkness being banished by light, the power of unity. Hold on to each other, she commanded, pulling her children close, their small bodies huddled against her side, warmth grounding her amidst the chaos. Believe in the light. The shadows writhed, twisting and turning as the air shimmered. With every ounce of strength, Maria pushed against the encroaching dark, channeling her fear into an indomitable will. We'll rise above this. Together. In that moment, her voice transformed into something unearthly, a blend of defiance and hope that echoed through the tumult. With her children clutched tightly, she could almost feel their heartbeats synchronize with hers, a rhythmic drum of unity against the terror. Then, just when it felt as if the tide might turn, the darkness roared. A cacophony of voices howled around them, merging into one, a wretched plea that rattled the very bones of the house. You cannot escape. You are part of us now. Maria squeezed her eyes shut, letting the cries wash over her, searching for strength within. Memories of family warmth flooded her mind, laughter, love, moments that transcended fear. You're wrong. She finally shouted, her voice cutting clear. You have no power over love. A blinding light erupted from her heart, pooling around them like a halo, pushing back the shadows inch by inch. But as the light flickered and grew, she sensed the entity behind Mrs. Thompson beginning to concentrate its energy, its next attack looming larger than before. Mommy! It's not over. Lucas cried desperately as the air thickened, heavy with darkness. And before Maria could respond, a piercing shriek erupted, shaking their very core. It promised the end, a finality filled with doom. What unseen force would be unleashed next? Would they be able to withstand the onslaught, or would this be the moment everything changed forever? The shriek seemed to vibrate through her bones, a visceral sound that felt like ice scraping over every nerve. Maria's heart raced as she stumbled backward, feeling Lucas and Amy cling tighter to her. The room trembled around them, the very walls echoing their fear, vibrating like a tuning fork in a discordant symphony of dread. Mommy, it's coming! Lucas shouted, eyes wide with terror. Maria could feel the oppressive weight of the shadows closing in. They slithered toward her like snakes, each tendril brimming with a malevolent hunger. The light she conjured flickered, pulsing like a heartbeat, throwing wild shadows against the walls that danced with sinister glee. How can we stop it? Amy whimpered, glancing up. Her small voice wobbled, barely above a whisper. Just hold on. We have to believe. Maria shouted, forcing conviction into her voice. But doubt trickled in, fogging her resolve. What if believing wasn't enough? What if they had already lost? The shadows surged forward, twisting around Maria's legs like cold hands gripping at her flesh. The pulsing light fought against the encroaching darkness, splattering sparks on the floor, like stars dying one by one. Your love is a weakness. Mrs. Thompson shrieked, her voice piercing through the chaos. She stood, the entity swirling around her, an indistinct mass of malignancy. You cannot win this battle. Join us, and the pain will end. No! Maria screamed, though her voice quavered. Every heartbeat pulsed with terror. We're not alone. We have each other. The shadows recoiled slightly as if her words had struck a nerve. But then they lunged again, a force of swirling night that threatened to engulf them. With a fierce resolve she didn't quite feel, Maria dug her nails into Lucas's shoulder, and Amy clutched her hand tightly. I won't give in. Not today. She cried, summoning whatever strength she could find. Light erupted from her once more, brighter this time, filling the room with warmth that chased away the frigid tendrils of night. It pushed back the shadows, creating a barrier that felt almost real. But with each moment, Maria could sense the darkness becoming more feral, feeding off desperation. Mommy, it's too strong. Lucas cried, his voice trembling. Don't lose faith, Lucas. Maria shouted, desperation lacing her voice. Fear twisted in her gut, a cold knot forming. She felt the shadows pulling her down, inch by agonizing inch. A flicker of truth sparked in her mind, find the source. She thought, desperately seeking a way to sever the grip of the shadows. It has to have a heart, a weak spot. But just as quickly, a furious howl ripped through the air, shaking her to her core. The shadows surged, crashing like a tidal wave against her shield of light, overpowering her. In that moment of weakness, she saw a glimpse of a face swirling, an anguished visage blended with Mrs. Thompson's "Deliver us." It cried, a chorus of voices merging into one, demanding to be released from the torment. It was no longer just about survival, it was about freedom. A new fear gripped her, an unsettling thought: the darkness wasn't just seeking them to take, it wanted to escape through them. Would her children be sacrificed to satiate its insatiable hunger? No. We want to be your vessel. Maria shouted, but deep inside, uncertainty reached out like a greedy hand, yet the light shattered into a million fiery fragments, and in an instant, every shadow twisted, coiling like a serpent poised to strike. The silence that followed felt heavy, suffocating. Then, it began to claw at her heart, an ominous pressure that threatened to bring despair. Maria knew they were running out of time. Lucas. Amy. We fight together. Maria yelled, clutching their hands tighter, determination fueling her as deep shadows flickered around them. As the air around them crackled with impending horror, she could barely make out the silhouette of what lay beyond the veil. What had she unleashed? With a final, desperate surge of light, Maria prepared to face the encroaching void, but was left to wonder, would she be the one to break the darkness, or would the darkness break her first? The light flickered weakly around them, a desperate glow amidst a world rapidly retreating into shadow. Maria felt the pressure on her chest intensify, panic clutched at her throat. The children squeezed her hands, but their grip felt feeble, like tiny lifelines slipping through her fingers. Concentrate. She urged, pushing out the words through clenched teeth. Focus on the light. We can't let it win. The shadowy mass lunged again, this time more ferociously. It blurred the boundaries of its form, losing the shape that had once been Mrs. Thompson. In its place, an overwhelming surge of emotions assaulted Maria: grief, anger, and a twisted sort of despair that burrowed deep into her mind. Lucas whimpered, grounding her back in the moment. Mommy, it hurts. His voice broke with fear, each word laced with the sting of tears. Maria's heart twisted as she watched the shadows draw closer to him, tendrils reaching for her child with greed. No. Get away from my son. Fueled by fury, Maria's voice tore through the oppressive silence, vibrating with power. Light erupted from her again, brighter than before. The walls trembled, casting away the shrouds of darkness, if only for a moment, but the shadows were relentless. Disembodied whispers seemed to swirl in the air, frantic, pleading. Free us, the voices coalesced, an uneasy harmony that pressed against her mind. It was the scream of souls trapped in torment, bathed in despair. Maria stumbled, grappling with doubt. Was it true? Were they merely fighting to keep the darkness at bay while it siphoned off their strength? Her resolve wavered, the weight of the shadows suffocating as the chorus grew stronger. Mommy, I can't hold on," Amy cried, her small fingers slipping from Maria's grasp. A wave of black coiled around the girl, pulling her toward the gaping maw of darkness. "No!" Maria lunged, her body surging forward. The light flickered, threatening to drown in darkness entirely. She grasped Amy's wrist in time, fighting through the crushing sensation that clawed at her fiercely. "I want to let it take you. We are going to fight." And in that moment, as the shadow writhed around them, something unexpected happened. The anguished faces within the shadow fractured and flared, revealing flashes of memories. Images of joy and light danced before her eyes, flickering like candle flames. Laughter echoed through the depths, but it was tinged with sorrow, memories intertwined with the depths of despair. Those captured souls were not just angry. They were desperate for release. The realization washed over Maria: the darkness was feeding on their fear and pain, but also drawing power from their longing for freedom. "Together we can set them free," Maria shouted, a sudden surge of hope igniting within her. "Think of the good memories. Picture the light. We are stronger." The children's wide eyes met hers, confusion transitioning to belief. They nodded, desperation giving way to determination. With renewed vigor, they pressed against the shadows, focusing on the memories of warmth, joy, and love. But just as their collective light began to rise again, a ear-splitting scream shattered the air. The shadows convulsed violently, as if struck by a bolt of lightning. "No! You will not take our help!" The twisted voice of Mrs. Thompson screeched, and darkness surged, snapping at them like a rabid beast. Maria felt her resolve being rocked under the assault. The very foundation of her hope trembled. "Lucas! Amy! We need to fight now. It won't let us go easily." The palpable menace loomed larger, and a foreboding chill wrapped around them like a shroud. The struggle was far from over. Then, from the depths of the dark, a sinister growl rose, reverberating through the room. "You don't know what you've awakened." The ground beneath them shifted, and the shadows stirred restlessly. The hourglass of existence was tipping, and they were teetering on the edge. Maria could feel it in her bones: whatever was lurking beneath wanted to be freed at any cost. "Stand firm. We need to push it back." She felt the fear creep in again, but this time she refused to yield. With the strong conviction of her love, the darkness could not take them. But as the silhouette of a great shape formed amidst the shifting shadows, Maria asked herself, were they truly fighting to survive, or fighting to unleash something far worse? Something began to rise, and she braced for the pulse of terror that would come with it. The ground shuddered beneath Maria's feet, vibrating like a living thing. She felt its pulse sync with her own heartbeat, fast, frantic. The silhouette grew distinct, a twisted mass churning, unveiling grotesque features. Dark eyes glimmered with malice, and a mouth of jagged teeth slowly parted, revealing an insatiable hunger. "Mommy! Make it stop!" Lucas cried, his voice tremulous while Amy's grip went slack. Terror made her breath come in shallow gasps, as shadows slithered closer, dragging her children toward the swirling darkness. "Hold on. Maria couldn't lose them. Not now. Not ever." They were her light, the beacons flickering in this nightmare. She forced fresh energy into her voice, grounding it with fierce determination. "Think of your happiest moments. Remember the park, our family dinners. Remember laughter." The memories surged again, but this time they sparked fervor amidst the chaos. Images cascaded through the air: sunshine streaming through branches, ice cream melting down their fingers, the three of them bundled together under a blanket, stories shared in warm light. The darkness recoiled slightly, as if rebuffed by the shimmering glow that fought to outshine it. "Can you feel it?" Maria implored, sweat beading at her temples. "Can you feel the love? The light? Focus on that." Beside her, the children's eyes brightened, their small faces alight with fleeting hope. They began to hum a soft tune, a sweet melody that rang like a chime through the air. The shadows around them writhed, releasing anguished shrieks, as if the very fabric of the darkness was tearing. Maria's heart filled with burgeoning strength. They could push it back. They could fight, but suddenly, a new sound emerged, one that sent a chill slicing through her hope. A voice low, mocking cackled from the depth of the shadow. "Your light is nothing. I was here before you. I will consume you." The room darkened further, deeper than before. An overwhelming dread pressed down on Maria like a weight. It felt alive, squirming against her chest. Something ancient, something that had endured through time and despair. "Don't listen. Keep going," she yelled, trying to banish the malevolent whisper. "Push harder." But as they sang and focused on the happy moments, the haunting past began to reveal itself. The very walls around them pulsated, alive with memories of horror. Lost souls flitted through the atmosphere in broken forms, mouths opening in silent screams. The laughter soon mingled with cries of terror, blurring joy with sorrow. "Mommy." Amy's voice cracked. "They're hurting. They never wanted to let us go. They want us to join them. No. We can't." Maria shook her head vehemently, feeling panic grip her with icy fingers. "We can't become them." As she turned back toward the encroaching shadows, something massive lurked behind, its presence swelling. The once familiar shapes morphed into something grotesque, swirling together like a black storm. "Do you understand?" It growled, every word dripping with bitterness. "You are not saving them. You are awakening me." The air thickened and became heavy with despair. Maria felt the children recoil, fear spilling from their tiny bodies. Something unnameable clawed at her mind, memories of failures and guilt, all spiraling to the center of her being. The flashes of happy imagery began to distort. In the brief seconds of flickering light, she caught glimpses of darkness overcoming joy. Her children lost in the thick shadows, her laughter drowned into nothingness. "Maria, please." Lucas gasped, terror shrinking his voice almost to a whisper. "Don't let it take us." "Never." With each heartbeat, Maria's mind raced. The understanding of their shared vulnerability and the desperation of the lost souls became clearer. They weren't entirely enemies. Some were seeking release, but that didn't absolve their hunger. The shadows pulsed back, as if sensing her hesitation. "Join us, and you will never feel pain again." It was a lie steeped in darkness. For a moment, she felt the seductive pull of its promise, but she pushed it away, shaking her head violently. "Listen to me. We are stronger together." She shouted again, but the shadows roared, mounting a new attack, a desperate final push toward them. She could sense a terrible climax building, a point of no return, either victory or utter oblivion. The tendrils of the shadow lunged forward. There was no more time. What she did next would change everything. "Together!" she screamed, summoning every last shred of her will. The light danced more fiercely, flickering bravely against the dark. But just as she thought they might win, a chilling laugh echoed through the hall. "You think this is just a fight? You have no idea the price of your choices. What would emerge from this battle? Pain, escape, or something unspeakably worse?" The walls trembled, the air thick with the weight of despair as Maria clung to her children, the certainty of her resolve shaking under the encroaching darkness. The pulse of fear reverberated through her, yet even amidst the chaos, she felt a flicker of light deep within, a stubborn ember refusing to fade. The figure that loomed before them contorted, a nightmare manifested in anguish and malice, but Maria forged ahead. "Lucas! Amy!" she urged, gripping their hands tighter. "Remember our family. Remember love." The shadows quaked in response, as if her words sliced through the oppressive air. Each breath grew heavier, but beneath it all, Maria felt her heart thud in defiance, a battle cry against despair. "Mommy, I feel it too." Lucas echoed, his small voice trembling but steady. The shadows shrank back just a fraction, drawn by the purity of their connection. We have to keep holding on. The rhythmic thrum of their unity pulsed between them, warmth spread as they drew together, every shared laugh and precious moment flooding back like a tsunami of light. Maria thought of summer days spent in parks, birthdays filled with laughter, the quiet joy of family dinners. Each memory flowed through her veins like fire, burning away the cold tendrils of despair. Together. She repeated, the word becoming a mantra. We are strong. We won't let it take us. Fear clawed at her throat but determination surged through her heart. The darkness shuddered, recoiling from the onslaught of vivid joy and love. Join us. The entity bellowed, its voice a twisted mockery of their warmth, taunting, fierce. Shadows slithered closer, curling around Maria's ankles, tugging her down into the void. Just give in. But Maria's grip held firm, her fingers intertwined with those of her children. No. Our bond is unbreakable. You cannot shatter our light. The shadows twisted, furious, as if her words were blades driving deep into an unseen wound. Feel it. Remember our happiest moments. The children began to hum, their voices threading together into a soft, lilting melody. The familiar notes filled her with peace, swelling against the noise of darkness. She sensed the shadows shiver as the lullaby wrapped around them like a soothing blanket against the bleak reality. Listen. Maria commanded, her heart pounding. Our love will shine through this darkness. The shadows writhed, retreating momentarily. It was as if the fabric of their darkness strained under the brilliance of love. In that pulse of light, Maria saw them, the lost souls trapped in torment. Their faces became twisted with agony, yet in their eyes flickered a glint of hope. Free us, they whispered, merging with the swell of sound. Set us free. A surge of understanding washed over Maria. It wasn't just about survival, it was about liberation. We need to help them. We can give them peace. She cried, her voice rising above the cacophony. The children nodded, their determination reflecting her own. They focused on the trapped souls, channeling warmth and memories into one shared wish for freedom, a wish that resonated in the very walls. Let them go. Maria shouted, her voice igniting the air. We choose light. With that declaration, the room exploded in brightness, a fierce luminescence taking form, pushing back the nefarious presence that encroached upon them. The shadows writhed, loath to release their claim. No! Roared the dark entity, thrashing violently against the tide. The derisive laughter turned to shrieks of horror, as the very semblance of its being began to crack. You cannot do this. Maria could feel the struggle within the air, the shadows contorting in chaos before her. For every shroud of darkness, a luminescent ray of light broke through, illuminating their path. Shout it. Lucas encouraged, finding his voice stronger. Shout it together. Amazing love. The three of them chorused, will set you free. The sound enveloped, reverberating through the very essence of their world. As if each harmony was meticulously crafted, weaving itself into an impenetrable barrier of light. Once more, the darkness recoiled. Release them. Maria called, her voice the spearhead against the shadows. Desperation crossed her heart, she felt the weight of love burdened with challenges. She breathed deeply, harnessing every ounce of hope. The shadows finally buckled and shrieked, showing the softness of their torment, the longing for release through sorrow forged in despair. Help us, they echoed back, their cries no longer fierce but frail, hauntingly human. With one last push, Maria called forth her children's strength. We won't let you take anyone. You are powerless against love. As their voices crescendoed, the shadows burst apart like newly spilled ink in water, unraveling into particles of memory, into whispers that faded into the ether. Their cries of anguish transformed into soft echoes, merging gracefully into the light. And just like that, silence descended, a profound stillness, thick with unfulfilled anguish, but painted with remnants of light. Maria collapsed, breathless, cradling her children tight against her. "It's over," she panted, a heaviness releasing from her chest, warmth enveloping them in a protective cocoon. They had emerged from the fray not simply as survivors, but as vessels of light themselves, illuminating hope in depths otherwise fraught with despair. The house around them hummed gently, vibrant and alive, whispers of sorrow now muted into memories long past. "Forever," Maria whispered, hugging Amy and Lucas tighter, tears streaming down her face. "We'll love fiercely, and keep the light alive." As dawn began to break outside, golden rays crept through the windows, filling the once darkened chamber with warmth. They had weathered the storm, emerging into a world where shadows lost their grip. And with every heartbeat, Maria vowed to keep their story alive. "Now," she breathed, looking down at her children, "let us go home." But before they turned to leave, Maria glanced back at the remnants of the darkness that once imprisoned them, now just fleeting whispers, echoes of souls finding solace. A soft promise lingered in the air: their fight had brought forth a new dawn, where light would forever preserve their memories and sacrifice, and with newfound strength, they stepped into the bright morning, leaves rustling gently, the future unfurling wide before them. As they walked, a call rang out from within. Please, if you enjoyed this story, do yourself a favor and subscribe immediately. You need to be part of this community. Don't miss out on the next exclusive tales waiting for you. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, help it dance, and bring more stories to life. And I want you to flood that comments section with your thoughts, your reactions. What did you think of this ending? Finally, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let them in on the magic. Your support matters. True fans know that every action counts.